Order, members. Order. I call the member for Whitsunday.
Thanks very much, Speaker. Thanks very much, Speaker. And look, before we go any further, Mr. Speaker, I want to I speak for everyone, no matter where they sit in relation to this debate, in expressing our sympathy to the family of the late Daniel Christidis, who was the doctor, the 33-year-old doctor coming into the peak of his powers, the time of his life, whose life was tragically cut short in Syd Harbour only last week. And I can't imagine the horror that he went through on that day, that fateful day, with having the holiday of a lifetime. So our deepest sympathy to the Christidis family, and also thinking of the other victims, particularly young Hannah Papps. She only has one leg, poor girl, in that same city where Dr Christidis was, and we wish Hannah particularly all the best with her recovery as well. Mr Speaker, can I just say, we've just heard from the member for Keppel, and I'll tell you what, if I was the editor of the Morning Bulletin tomorrow, the front page is, pull the drumlines out on the Capricorn coast. Mr Speaker, in a nutshell, the member for Keppel is off her rocker. Off her rocker, Mr Speaker, because there are drum lines, as you would know, as many members of this
Member
Parliament.
for Whitsunday, please resume your seat. What is your point of order?
Mr Speaker, I take personal offence to being called off my rocker, and I'm asking to withdraw.
Order! Order! Members to my left. Members to my left. Members, there is a convention in this place. The member for Keppel has found those comments offensive. Member for Whitsunday, will you withdraw?
Mr Speaker, I thank you for your guidance. I withdraw.
Thank you.
Mr Speaker, the member for Keppel spoke about the 100 magic miles between Mackay and Bowen. It's amazing, isn't it? Because in the southern part of my electorate, guess what we've got? Drumlines off our beaches in the southern part of the electorate of Whitsunday, off Blacks Beach, off Bucosia, off Imeo. But the northern part of my electorate, Mr Speaker, there is nothing as part of the Queensland Government's shark control program, which the member for Condamine beautifully illustrated in terms of its history going back to 1962. And I might add, that followed a fatal attack on Lambert's Beach on Mackay's north side involving 18-year-old student teacher, a local girl, Margaret Hobbs, in 1961. And at that stage, basically, the government of the day had had enough. And as I've said to local media, stakeholders, anyone who's willing to listen, governments, Labor and Liberal National Party governments, are either side of the divide. We have the argy-bargy and debate and arguments and whatever you want to call it about public policy with education, schools, hospitals, roads and whatnot. But one thing that has been sacrosanct in that regard, that has had bipartisan support for decades in relation to this issue, has been the shark control program in Queensland. There's been never a debate about it. And I can only imagine what former Labor MPs up and down the Queensland coast must be thinking here, because, as we've heard from members on this side in this debate tonight, people should come before sharks every day of the week. So Miss Hobbs, who was taken in 1961, I walked Lambert's Beach only a couple of days ago, and I remember as a child growing up in the city that I represent as a fifth-generation local, we never swum there. And I'm not saying for 1 minute, and I have not been advocating for a cull. This is about an inquiry, so I support the motion as moved by the member for Gympie, my dear friend, and the shadow minister here, who's got a good handle on this. I do support it, needless to say. We're not calling for a cull. Personally, all I want to see is what everywhere else in the state's got. In Cairns, from Holloway's through to Alice Beach, in Townsville, on the Strand, Pallarenda, Magnetic Island, Mackay, from Harbour Beach through to Bucosia, in my own electorate, the Capricorn Coast, from Emu Park right through to Farnborough. Then, of course, in Bundaberg we come, from Bargara up to Burnett Heads, Rainbow Beach, the Gold Coast from Coolangatta through to the Spit, and the Sunshine Coast from memory from Bribie Island right through to Noosa. How's that for a roll call, Mr Speaker? But guess where we don't count? Human life's not important in the Whitsundays, and I say that people should come first. This is going to damage our tourism industry, Mr Speaker. I've already been contacted by a family from Shell Harbour on the south coast of New South Wales. I know it well. And that person has told me very clearly, good luck with getting the drumlines into the Whitsundays. We want to come up for a snorkelling holiday next September, but, Mr Speaker, if they don't go in, they're not coming. I've got no doubt that the Whitsundays, on the back of this bad publicity that's happening under the watch of the Tourism Minister here, the Labor Minister for Tourism, will impact our tourist numbers. We have been the #1 departure point for tourists going into the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. It is my prediction under Labor that this will change and Cairns will regain that mantle. But more importantly, how many more people will lose limbs, arms and legs, and how many more people will die? I want to see some drumlines off our beaches on the mainland, Airlie Beach, Cannonvale and Bowen. Aside from what happened in 1889, Mr Speaker, in Bowen, this has never ever happened before in the Whitsundays since European settlement. It's one fatality too many, and it's happening under this watch. The government is in denial, I'm sorry to say, but the Mayor and the Council are in denial and the industry is in denial. Things need to change and we need to put people ahead of sharks.
I call the member for Redlands.
Mr Speaker, I rise